Technology Association's webinar entitled Digital Discount Programs, Universal Affordable Access to Course Content. We hope to share some varied perspectives today on new cost-saving student programs, as well as hear from a publisher, a department chair and professor, and a college bookstore coordinator. My name is Steve Rulig. I'm Human Kinetics Vice President of Sales and Marketing and formerly served as the Director of Higher Education Division here at HK. I'll be helping out as host today on behalf of the AKA. We are very pleased to be joined by Mary Rudisil, AKA Past President, and Wayne T. Smith, Distinguished Professor and Director of Motor Development at Auburn University, as well as Rusty Weldon, Assistant Director at Auburn University Bookstore. The webinar is scheduled today for an hour, and we will be recording the session, and it will be available for playback later. By the end of the day tomorrow, you can expect to receive an email from us, and we'll include a link to the recording for you. The link will also be available on the AKA website under the announcements on the homepage, and you'll also find under the handout section in the control bar on your right, there is a copy of the slides in PDF form for your reference as well, and you're welcome to access and download that as well. Just some housekeeping. During the presentation, all microphones and phone lines are muted, so we ask that you communicate with us by using the GoToWebinar features, and importantly, we'd like you to submit questions, and you can type those questions into the question box located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and then just click send. We'll collect any questions that are sent throughout the presentation, and we will answer as many as possible during the Q&A segment at the end of our presentation today. So what we're talking about today is digital discount programs, and a common issue for educators is how to best equip their students to be well prepared for courses. With the cost of attending college continuing to increase, including the cost of textbooks, students have had to make hard choices. More and more, they are choosing simply not to buy a textbook or for their course, with 66% of those surveyed suggesting that they're not buying a book at all for their course. Many more are waiting to purchase to see if the text is really going to be necessary. The result is that not all students have access to content needed in the course. So to address this, publishers, administrators, faculty, and bookstores have helped to forge new partnerships. And that's what we're going to talk today, called inclusive access programs. What inclusive access means is it ensures that all students have access to course materials from the first day of a course. Significant discounts are afforded through these programs because all students are participating, creating the lowest prices available for these digital course materials. This is made possible by the student fees being administered as part of the course. The results thus far have been very well received by students and their instructors, and we're going to share more about that for you all today. Now I'd like to introduce Mary Rudisil, who is going to share with us her perspective regarding the challenges her students face in securing course materials in an increasingly expensive higher education environment. Mary?
Thanks so much, Steve. So today I want to give a quick overview of digital discount programs from a department chair and faculty member's perspective, and I was the one who was really interested in AKA delivering a webinar on this topic because of my concerns with a number of students, particularly here at Auburn, but after I heard students across the country that are really not getting access to textbooks and course content. As we know, the textbook is the single most predominant curriculum delivery vehicle in schools in the United States, and it's just really important tool for student learning. I think everybody on this webinar is clearly aware of how important access to course content is, and it's critical for student learning, but just as a brief reminder, it is important that for being prepared for class, engaging in class discussions, and having confidence about knowing what the content is, performing well on assignments and successfully completing the course. Those are all things that are really important to us. Really important is that they learn the course content so they can go out into the field and be well informed and practice well and do us all a good job. So talking about the benefits of digital media discount programs, I just wanted to highlight a few of the things that I think that we're most familiar with here at Auburn. The first one that comes to mind is creating equitable opportunities for all students to have access to course content on day one. To me, I think this is one of the best reasons to adopt digital media discount programs. All of our students should have access to the textbook. I don't think it's just the kids who have lots of money or who have haven't managed their money properly. All students sitting in the room should have access to the textbook, not just those who are fortunate enough to have the money to do so. Another really good benefit is that it allows the students to purchase textbooks when paying tuition fees. So scholarship funding can be used, and I think this has been really, really helpful for our students here at Auburn. They can use scholarship funds to pay their textbooks because the fee is included in their fee bill. And Rusty's going to talk, I think, a little bit more about that in just a minute. He's also going to talk a little bit about participation as voluntary and that students can opt out. Not all students do participate in the discount program, getting digital discount materials, but they're very few, and Rusty will talk about that in just a minute. In terms of texts that can be provided, the way they are uploaded, they're uploaded into platforms, and you can use third-party platforms, and those could be VitalSource, Redshelf, and there's a variety of those. Or you can use your own university's preferred platform. In our case, we use Canvas here at Auburn, and so we upload course materials into Canvas, so all students have access to the materials on day one. There's also benefits like designing the course, the information that you're going to include in the text, so you don't have to adopt the entire text. You can identify the materials in the text that you want to cover, and as an instructor, I don't think I ever went from the beginning of the textbook all the way through, and I don't think I ever covered all the chapters that were in a textbook, a hardbound copy. But in this case, you can pare it down and you can tailor-make the materials to really fit what you'll be covering. So the students aren't purchasing things that they don't need. They're purchasing the content that you'll be covering in your class. So, you know, if you only want chapters 1, 2, 4, 7, and 10, that's what you'll get. And I think that's a pretty nice feature as well. There's also another benefit, and that is it saves the students up to 60% or more based on comparison to the price of a regular hardbound textbook. I haven't had a complaint on that yet. I think everybody's really happy that we are reducing the prices for the students to have access to textbooks. And then another benefit is that the students prefer digital because it's portable, and I know a book's portable too, but you know, 5 or 6 books and a backpack's pretty heavy. They can all upload their textbooks into their computer, so they're really only carrying around that rather than all the textbooks that they might purchase for a semester. They're also easy, it's easy to navigate. And it's also environmentally friendly. And I know that there's environmental issues with technology as well, but I think everybody feels really good about the fact that we are reducing down the amount of paper that we're using. And I know our students are really, really excited about having access to their materials on their computer. You know, I'm a auditory learner. I have a computer, and everything that I read on my computer, I read aloud because there's a feature to do that. And so I do see that this does accommodate students that maybe do learn in a little bit different way than just visual. So just a few other little things that I want to mention before I turn it over to Rusty, and that is that the faculty in kinesiology, we're really, really good at creating content, and we know what the students should learn. But we should be leaving the publishing and the marketing and the managing of the funds to the publisher and to the bookstore. That makes a whole lot of sense to us. Here at Auburn in the School of Kinesiology, we created online text for our physical activity classes. We did that about 10 years ago. It was really easy for us to create the content. We knew what we wanted to send them home with in terms of, you know, take-home messages from classes. But the publishing part was way beyond our capability, and We ended up working with a publisher and with a bookstore to reduce our load. We created a digital media discount program that has been working incredibly well for us. We now work with other publishers using digital media discount programs, and whether you're creating your own materials or whether you're using someone else's content and buying textbooks from somewhere else, we really believe that digital media discount, these programs and opportunities are really the way to go. So just a quick summary. The benefits are all our students have access to the content on day one. I think that's really big. It's affordable. It's charged to the student fee bill. They also have it for a lifetime. In our case, we wanted our students to take that physical activity, those modules, home with them because we're in a state where people are not very healthy, and we wanted them to have content when they went home because some of the modules had things in them like behavioral change, how to change your behavior so you can be more healthy. So we were really, really committed to them holding on to the materials. They can't sell it back, and they don't sell it on eBay, and they don't sell it back to the bookstore. And I do have a little bit of issue with those people that do create the content and the publisher, that they should benefit from the sale. So I do think there's some real benefits there as well. But we also have been able to build our own modules and really tailor-make the materials to fit the courses, and we have not had one complaint in the 10 years we've been doing this. I've had a few parents call me asking me why their kids had a charge on their fee bill, but once I explained to them what it was and why we were doing it, they were actually incredibly grateful. They were excited that their students were going to get exciting material that they thought that they would enjoy on their computer, but they also appreciated the low price. I do believe that students win in this situation. I really can't find anybody that loses in this type of approach. The faculty are feeling really good about it because the students have the materials. They're not buying them, the week of final exams when I'm failing the class and feel like I really have to buy it, or at midterm. They have it from the very beginning. And also, I think, we feel good about it as a school. We're proud of of this initiative. I think our university is really excited about it because we're kind of a front runner in doing some of this. But also, I think the field of kinesiology wins because we're giving students the content, access to the content that they need to learn the material, so that when they go out there in the real world, they represent us well, but they also do a good job. So at this point then I'm going to turn it over to Rusty, and he's going to talk to you a little bit more about the programs and how it works on college campuses. Rusty?
Thank you, Mary. I really want to appreciate or say a word of thanks to Steve and Mary both for the opportunity to speak today. I thought I would start out with just a little bit of context about the bookstore here at Auburn because I know many of you will be coming from different circumstances on your campus. But at Auburn, the bookstore is institutionally owned, so everything that we do gives back to Auburn. In the last 5 years, with the rapid change that we've seen both in content and student purchasing, but also with the way that we get books and the pricing of books, we have made a decision to move our textbook operation to a low-cost or low-profit, no-profit operation. We still do make a little bit of revenue, but we decided to really put our efforts into making course materials more affordable here at Auburn. The rapid change has been really good for the bookstore industry, college bookstore industry as a whole, just in context. There were a lot of systems that were in place for a long time that had really become stagnant, and we weren't as good as an industry for looking outside to see what could we be doing better. We adopted both rental and digital here at Auburn to help students begin to afford their course materials more often because, like Mary said, we knew that there were students who would come in and would not be able to physically afford the materials that had been adopted by their professor. And we really turned that mission to a conversation about affordability and choice. We actually post a huge 4x6 banner out in front of the bookstore that tells students on average last year how much they saved by shopping here at the store with everything that we're trying to do to reduce cost, but really make affordability our primary mission and have that be a value statement that we focus to our students. So when Inclusive did come to us, it was actually a very logical next step for us to approach because students already knew that we were fighting for them from a price standpoint. So affordability and Inclusive made a lot of sense for our campus when we got the chance to do it. And I'll say that we're seeing a real movement now in publisher interest in partnering with stores to make this happen and to invest in stores as well. So when this opportunity presented itself, it was 3 years ago, we actually had a publisher approach us. The kinesiology department actually had a course that they taught online primarily that they wanted each student to be able to have this material on the first day. So we started out by having all of the conceptual discussions. And I think for any campus, this is probably the most crucial step, is getting all of the campus entities that have to have an invested part in this process going well to give their stamp of approval. So what we did once the opportunity was ours, we called a meeting with people from our campus IT department, our Canvas administrator here on campus. We also pulled in the registrar for billing purposes to make that transaction complete. And we also talked to the executive vice president. Here in Alabama, we were able to not add necessarily the course as a course fee, but we decided to move it in as a course material charge. And the reason that we did that was that students still have the ability in this model to back out of that or to opt out of that. So it's not a mandatory course fee as most course fees are defined across the country. We got all of these people together in a room and everybody decided if you want to run with it, bookstore, run with it. And what we really tried to stress in those conversations is there's still a very large customer service aspect to it. Mary alluded to that a little bit in the calls that she got. I think that through my experience in this, you definitely still want a local entity somewhere on campus managing this. And I think when IT saw it, when the Bursar saw it, they saw that we were experts already in the customer transaction. And I think that made the decision to let it be a bookstore project since we already knew course materials, we already knew our customers and what they needed as far as service. I think that it made a lot of sense for our campus to move forward in letting us have that program. So a couple of things that Mary didn't touch on about the model itself. Once Inclusive came out in the form that we're talking about it today, the Department of Education actually weighed in with some guidelines for campuses that were adopting the model. And that's something very important to understand if your campus doesn't have a model yet or if you're thinking about it. The Department of Education gave very loose guidelines with, of course, nebulous wording, as our government is so apt to do at times. But the guidelines basically stated that affordability had to be at the heart of any of these programs. Students were given the ability to opt out of a program if they wanted to, and the only way that wouldn't be possible is if the material chosen was customized to a course where students couldn't purchase it anywhere else. But I think obviously the statement there implied was it still had to be affordable. So as a college store with an affordability focus, we really wanted to do it to make sure that our publisher partners could meet us at that affordability goal. That was something that we felt like as good a relationship as we have with our publishers. Here's a bookstore on campus at Auburn. We knew that they would be willing to work with us and really help drive that cost down. But the Department of Education guidelines are out there, and it'd be a good thing if your campus doesn't have a program yet or you're interested in it to really look at those and understand the difference in the two models, the opt-out and then the customized course. So we implemented our opt-in, opt-out program. Most all of our programs so far have been opt-out. So students are automatically put into the charge and they have the ability to go into their student account and back out of those to opt out before the drop and add deadline. So what this basically does is give every student 2 free weeks of access in any of these courses. So not only do they have the material on the first day, but for most of the ways that these courses are built, students have free access for the first 2 weeks of class. So if a student gets to the drop and add deadline, which is the 15th class day here at Auburn, they could actually drop out of that material and go try to find a physical copy or have a borrowed copy or whatever it might be, but they still had access for free those first 2 weeks. And I think that again is a game changer for any student to be equipped and prepared to start that course off correctly. We've seen both ebook only and adaptive digital content go into our model here. A lot of instructors are choosing adaptive digital content because it makes the most sense for a digital delivery, but we've got a lot of instructors now that are choosing the ebook just because it reduces the cost to the student so much. So we've actually built it to where you can use any kind of digital content you want here at Auburn. We've really started trying to collect on best practices. We've been in our model for 3 years now, and we've migrated it from an email opt-out to where we've actually got a system inside Banner, Auburn's student information system, where all of that comes automatically here for our management of the program. And that's going to be something at any campus, is to be prepared for the rapid growth that's going to occur with any inclusive model. Because once faculty get in it, the word really spreads quickly, because here at Auburn, we've had nothing but good things so far from faculty and students being said about the all-access model. So it really grows quickly once you do get it established on campus. So efficiency is going to be really important to how that is managed. So to start off with, the Freshman Success course was the first course that we actually put into the model. The kinesiology class fell through a little bit because of some pieces that moved around on us, but the instructor had heard of the work and he was interested. And the reason that he was interested is he used a customized version of the course, of the book, as a freshman introductory class here at Auburn. So students were coming to class the first day. 30% of them didn't have the right book. 20% had bought the wrong book online or had borrowed it from somebody else that was an older edition. And he needed everybody to have the right book the first day because it had content that had to be turned back in class. If you didn't have the right book, you literally were not going to go very far in the class. So it took us about 3 months that very first time to work with the publisher involved, to get contract negotiations in place, which the bookstore here signed on behalf of campus. What we wound up doing was help VitalSource integrate here at campus at the root level. We've established almost every major publisher now on campus here at Auburn with a deep integration into Canvas so that content can be deployed directly into the learning management system. So the first day of class, students walk in, they open the course page in Canvas, and the material's there. It's a very efficient and very active way to do that. And Chris Wyckoff, the lead instructor that made this decision, I'll tell you, he manages 80 different instructors each semester under this course. So if you're thinking in your mind, I don't know if I have the patience or the ability to adapt digital into my course, will it be difficult? Chris did this, and he actually had to implement that for 80 different instructors under him and make sure that that went well. And in the 3 years that he's doing it, they have had almost complete 100% success, both on the faculty and on the student level from this course. It's really, really worked well. And in a lot of the testimonies he's given on campus about it, it even superseded his expectations on how well it would be implemented and received by students. So it made sense for us and that course. It was really low-hanging fruit because it was a perfect model. Students didn't have the ability to opt out because it was customized. So it made it really clean to implement that as our first course. So then Mary's group came along that had their program in a lot of the same ways, a lot of the same needs. Their biggest pain point at the time that it was brought to me was that they needed a PCI compliant method for charging students. Some of your campuses are probably very similar in that credit card swipe, a lot of that needs to be really, really sewed up because it brings the university under scope when you're charging out materials for students. So they had heard of the way that we were charging students e-bills, how it had really become a clean process. And I love the way that it actually kept faculty authored content completely inside the university system. In the meetings that I've done with our faculty, I've really gotten a greater understanding and a greater appreciation of how much content is being developed by many faculty out there that want to bring these to their students, but don't really have a good way to do that. And I feel like that we really answered a pain point there, and really kept all of the revenue inside Auburn University for content that was developed inside the campus. So it was then that we started thinking about our model and decided that we really needed to make it agnostic, where it could be publisher content, it could be faculty content, any kind, because we've learned as a bookstore that content is changing very, very quickly, and we wanted to make it to where we could put any content into this model if a faculty member had need. The biggest thing that we've learned is that if you're getting into this model, that coordination and communication is going to have to be paramount, both to publishers and to faculty members from a bookstore perspective. We rolled it out to our publisher representatives first, even at a point where most publishing houses weren't talking about it as a big push. Today, that's all they're talking about. But back when we started our program, it was not yet front and center. It's still an evolving model, so if you're talking to a publisher about it, you may still find a publisher rep that doesn't know all of the ins and outs. But don't let that dissuade you, because all of the big publishing houses are really moving toward this being their primary focus to get content into students' hands. There's still a lot of disparity in how publishers are implementing these programs. So it might be one way with Cengage, it might be a different way with Pearson, it might be another way with Norton. As a faculty member, it shouldn't affect you as much. It will affect probably more so who's managing that on your campus. So for you as a faculty member, it would just be learning how that process works, and then understanding it so that you're ready for the first day. In my experience, having faculty really understand how this works on their campus and be able to explain that to their students is the best pivot point for a successful inclusive class. Faculty are still the most important pivot point, because students will listen to what's on the syllabus and what's being said that first day in class, and will understand and buy into that program based on the faculty members' perspective on it. So as a faculty member, understand when you get into an inclusive class what that means, and try to explain that value to the student. We still completely have our program as a faculty-driven program here at Auburn. We as the bookstore are simply a resource when the faculty member decides that they want to move into an inclusive method of delivery for their course content. There's no impediment to faculty choice. Academic freedom is completely intact with this program as well, and we knew that that would be really important to our campus. So the model is beginning to mature. What we did here at Auburn was we actually worked with our IT department and created a management system with our campus IT that was integrated into our student information system, Banner. So what we do now is we're able to send emails to students the very first day that they register for a course that says, please don't buy any course materials because this course is going to be an all-access course. So the very first day that a student registers here at Auburn, they know that their course is going to be all access, which gives them the time to make sure that that's going to be the right format for them. They can actually switch to another section if they'd rather prefer to do that. We try to get that message to them the very first day that they register. But they're also able to go in now and simply with a click of a button, opt in and opt out of any of the course materials charges for any of these courses that are inclusive here at Auburn. As I mentioned previously, we had done an email-based system, and it was simply not sustainable. So we learned a lot from that we needed to automate and be efficient with that. And there's actually software providers nationally now that can offer that to a campus that would be an electronically driven management program for a campus to do this. So you necessarily, if your bookstore isn't at the point where they can manage it, you could actually bring in a third-party provider and have them do this as well. So there's a lot of choice there, but we found that integrating it as deep into that student experience, it's amazing to me that students don't read their university email. I know that comes as a shock to everybody on the call, but that's one of the things that we've learned is communication has to be done and done and done again in order for that to reach students the way that we intend for it to. Pricing models are also beginning to change. At Auburn here, we drill down and negotiate with every publisher on every course so that price is unique to Auburn based off of all the different factors that we look at when we're negotiating. We're beginning to see that publishers are seeing the possible futures in this model. Just in January, we saw, I think Cengage and Pearson both reduce their digital prices across the board as they begin to see students interact with digital more. So we're beginning to see the prices really drive down because I thought at the beginning when we were working on this model that prices weren't as good as they could and should be. We're also beginning to see lifetime access being offered by publishers, which is a huge benefit. 3 years ago, we were seeing definitive timelines put on the amount of time that students would have content. And you still can find better value if you're willing to limit that, but I think that for some courses, it really makes sense for students to have lifetime access to these digital books, and we're really beginning to see the major digital providers work with publishers to make that happen. So pricing is getting better, and for anybody coming into it now, you wouldn't know the difference as to what it had been several years ago, but the pricing is definitely beginning to go toward that benefit of the student. So here at Auburn, we're seeing explosive growth. What we did at the very beginning of this was we really chose several courses and kept the program limited so that we could learn about things that we needed to do better. You don't want to make the hard choices and the hard lessons when you're dealing with 8,000 students. You want to make those when you're at a limited scope. So we started it off really small and kept it limited and really hush-hush almost on campus. And then we learned and we established the system in Banner where we could manage a larger scope of courses and students in the program. So what we did this March was we actually coordinated an event on campus with 8 publishers and 4 digital vendors, and we sent an email to every faculty member on campus that said, we have this model, we're very confident in the way that we can manage it for your class, and we can basically work with any publisher, any digital partner, and we even had a couple of partners that could move faculty authored content into digital, and said, here's the model, we're ready to provide this service for your course if you think it's the right choice for you. And we have seen the program grow exponentially every semester, even before the March event, but especially after the March event. That faculty really like the program benefits, and from the faculty that I've talked to, I basically try to have an in-person meeting with every faculty member joining the program. It's really solved a lot of the issues that faculty have the first week of class, because I know that it's a very difficult first week when you're trying to manage not only getting late additions into the class, but then half of the class doesn't have the book, and you're trying as a faculty member to follow that syllabus that you've so carefully constructed. Every faculty member I talked to said this gets rid of all of that headache, and it really, really does. For the faculty that have done it here at Auburn, they've told me it really gets rid of that first week headache to make sure that students are ready to go. And you know, some instructors are now offering the quizzes that they scheduled to offer the end of the first week of class because they know that everybody has the reading and has the opportunity to do that. So it's really changed, I think, how these courses are being taught at Auburn. Not just that value is there monetarily, but it's changing the way the courses are being taught. And that's a huge game changer for us here at Auburn, and we're glad to help that out. So faculty interest is really off the charts, and publishers are really beginning to step up their efforts to help manage the process, streamline the process, so that there's a little more uniformity in how things are being done. So I thought I'd fill you in really quickly on the results here at Auburn. We've been doing this for a solid 8 semesters over the last 3 years. And a couple of those semesters were pilots, so it's grown really quickly once we started the process. So we've done 167 courses. Auburn has a full-time enrollment of about 26,000. So these are individual students that we've touched over those 8 semesters. So we've almost touched the collective enrollment of Auburn in the 2.5, 3 years we've done it. Over the life of this, I would say about 95% of the courses that we've created this model for have an opt-out clause. Mary's group for the PhED courses and the very first, the UNIV courses that we did, those are customized where students can't get the material anywhere else. So we don't offer that opt-out option for those students. But every other course that we've done in this model does. And we've had a 3.3% opt-out rate for the lifetime of that over those 23,000 students. There's about a 7% opt-out rate on average nationally for campuses that are doing this. So 7% of students, even though that's 7%, that's still 93% of students that are engaged and ready to go with the material for those courses. Over the life of the program, we've saved students over $500,000 on the cost of the lowest price print option. And the reason that I say that, it might be that it was a new only package where it was a book with an access code, where that might have been the only way that we offered it here in the bookstore. However, in other courses, we priced that better than the used rental option that we had. That's where this is really making a change, is we're establishing the cost to student lower than the lowest price print option in any of these courses. It takes work, but students are really saving money here at Auburn to the tune of $500,000 with the work that's being done between us and the publisher. It's a 44.5% discount average here at Auburn, and the average cost of one of our program units is $50. And I think each of you on the call, realizing how much course materials can cost, a $50 book is a real win in 2017, especially if all students can come to class prepared and have the opportunity to do better in their courses. So looking ahead for this fall, we're about to jump from 6,400 students in the program in spring semester 2017 to we're at over 15,000 because that number has grown since I made this slide. So we've more than doubled the program after rolling this out to campus in a big way in March. I will say at the event in March, we had about 40 faculty members come by in the span of 3 hours to that event, which was good for an event for us, but we had a 100% conversion rate. Every faculty member that came to that event went into the inclusive model for fall for their courses. They liked what they heard and were able to do that. So we're going to see a lot of explosive growth with the model here at Auburn as people begin to hear about results of the people that are the faculty that are doing it now. We're also looking ahead to see how the model can help campus deliver OER and other types of content. OER being open educational resources. It's what you might hear as free content. We're really looking to make our model where it can pull in any kind of content and combine it. And really, it's the idea of that totally customized course content material, whether it's partly yours, partly OER, partly publisher content. There's just a lot of possibilities there. And we want to be able to flex this model so that will be ready when faculty are ready to drive it there. We're working right now very diligently on gathering internal analytics. So what we're doing is working with the Office of Institutional Research here at Auburn to start looking at these courses and to say what can we demonstrably say the impact of inclusive have been on some of these courses. So we're having to look at retention rates, and we're looking at academic results, and really trying to see if we can drive statistics that say this course had this effect since it was implemented into the inclusive program. What we're also doing is we're working with publishers to aggregate how that material is being used. We're working with VitalSource, RedShelf, a lot of the digital providers that we use here on campus, because they can actually provide analytics on how students are interacting with the material. And what we do is we're looking at grabbing anonymous student information to say, you know, students are engaging with the material on average for 30 minutes a day. Students are not reading this material and having this outcome in class. There's a lot of analytics that's involved in this, and maybe there's too much, but we're trying to find a good balance on deciding how these programs are impacting learning here at Auburn. And we're also, for the first time this semester, we're touching the students that were in the program themselves with a survey and saying, you know, what did you think about the digital content? Was it easy to get to? Do you think that you did better in the course because you had a digital copy the first day of class? Do you like having the charge go to your e-bill rather than having to come find the book here on campus or wherever it might have been? So we're learning very much, even though we've been in the program as long as it's really been around nationally. We're still learning, and it's still got a long way to go in the ways that we're defining the way that the program exists and lives and breathes on campus. But just to sum up, we've had a great experience with it. We've learned a lot doing it, but it's also really been great the way that it's brought faculty and the store together to work toward this common goal. Because we've got a good relationship with our faculty here on campus, but it's become even better the way that we've worked hand in hand to establish this model and bring this model to our faculty here on campus, that it's really helping them drive better outcomes and do additional things in their classrooms. I think that's my part, so I will turn it back over to Steve, and we will do some question and answer, I believe.
Thanks very much, Rusty, and thanks also to Mary. It's really fascinating to hear the case study of Auburn and what you've been able to accomplish there and the exciting things that are happening. One thing that I would add is I think that you both represent kind of the leading edge of these initiatives. What we found as a publisher is we communicate with folks in our markets that there are some schools that want to be engaged in this, but they're not at a place where they're as advanced as what Rusty described at Auburn. So sometimes what you might find is that for your own institution, you may be at an earlier starting place than these things. However, as Mary and Rusty have both suggested, there are so many benefits that all the parties that are associated with these programs are finding. There's real momentum to find a way to make these things work. I would also add that I think that it's unique by institution. So in some cases, Rusty's been very engaged in the bookstore, but we've had a couple of institutional partners who have worked through what I would describe as a digital coordinator that is not always housed in the bookstore. Maybe they are working with the bookstore, but they may be housed in an administrative department of some kind. So every institution might be doing this a bit differently, but it all kind of points in the same direction. And again, all those parties are engaged and interested in finding a way to make that work. I'd encourage anyone that has questions to go ahead and email those to us. We're happy to answer any of those for you today. I do have a few that I wanted to share with Mary and Rusty and have them respond to these. But again, please encourage you to send in additional questions that you might have via the question tool in the webinar tools. First of all, and this is probably more for Mary, how does this change the way that faculty teach when an inclusive access program or a digital program is utilized?
Well, I kind of think that Rusty probably hit on that. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference in terms of the materials. I mean, they're the same materials as what you would have in a textbook. But I do think that you can prepare, expect the students to have the materials so you can move forward very quickly in the beginning of the semester. So I think what the difference is for our faculty is they expect the students to be prepared, so there's kind of no excuses. We're moving forward. We're starting on day one. So I think I kind of see that as the one big benefit is that you can be assured that everybody in the class is ready to start.
Okay. Are there any restrictions on the content that can be used in a program like this? So are there examples where, Rusty, maybe you have found thus far that the content wasn't prepared in a digital format, or alternatively that as part of an issue of scaling up to be able to serve all of your faculty, you just didn't have the capacity to start? So are there any issues that you've encountered thus far with a professor has an interest in a given text, they want to offer it through these programs, but for some reason it couldn't be offered, maybe because the publisher didn't have it in the right format, or are there issues that you've encountered like that?
Sure. We've been pretty lucky so far here at Auburn, in that most things have gone in that people were interested in. I will say that there are some books out there that are just not going to be available for digital. We came back with one for the summer where the publisher returned the blurb, this title will never be available for digital format. And when you get that answer, that's just the answer. I would say the other major thing that we've run into on campus is when we have a split course. For example, our majors biology course is split over 2 sections, and our biology course uses a textbook with an adapted digital passcode from a publisher. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of work on the publisher side on how to split that cost and how to make it work for students that might jump into the second half of that rather than taking the first and the second half. So there are some quirks out there that might still cause a little bit of a curveball to go into the discussion. But what I found is that with a little bit of work and a little bit of discussion, most of those can be worked around. It's just with each course, there might be some peculiarities that have to be worked through. But for the most part, as far as getting the content, I would say, other than that one that I could think of, every one of ours has been a yes, and has been actually a really quick process to get it procured.
Okay. Another question that we received, do I have to teach with a digital copy? And I can tell you from our perspective, even though digital and ebooks are growing in their acceptance, people still like a physical copy, especially for instructors. Our policy is, and will continue to be, we are happy to share exam copies for review and for use in a course, even when a book is adopted digitally. I imagine that's true for Rusty and Mary. Have you found the same for other publishers?
Well, I don't have anybody asking for a hardbound copy. Sorry, but it's kind of easy to, you know, if you're lecturing, pulling up materials, you can pull things from it. So, you know, rather than taking your textbook and taking it down to the copy machine and scanning it in and getting a copy of it so that you can put it in a PowerPoint or whatever, it's already kind of there for you. So I haven't run into that issue. Rusty, has anybody asked you about that?
I will say that you can still get a physical copy as an instructor. Publishers are ready to provide desk copies in the same way that they have. If you go into our program, using any digital resource from any publisher, instructors are given a digital copy, obviously. So it's still up to an instructor whether they base their instruction off of a digital or a physical copy. I will say I neglected to mention in my slides that we provide a low-cost print option in our program for pretty much any course. So if a student is in the course and they'd rather have a print version, we've negotiated with publishers to offer one for $25 usually. It's a 3-hole punch black and white edition, but it's still cheaper for the student to stay in the digital program and order that black and white low-cost edition than it is even to go out and usually buy a used book from what I was offering the semester before. So we definitely still make a provision for print in the program, but I will say off of the 6,000 students in the spring, we had about 12 of them order a print version, and about 5 of those actually came and picked them up. So we had 5 students out of about 6,000 here at Auburn in the spring that were so interested in print that they actually came and purchased one.
Oh. Okay.
And I never thought that would happen here at Auburn either. So.
Here's another question that we received. Is there a choice in digital providers? And I think that there's two different angles on that question, both from textbook providers, which Rusty's talked about, meaning that the number of publishers, and also e-book platforms. So have you found choice that's available as part of these inclusive access programs?
We really have, and part of that is based on those digital providers. Most large publishers have their own initiatives on your campus, or would have them on your campus if they don't already. The two digital providers that we partner with here at Auburn are RedShelf and VitalSource. Both of these companies actually go out and procure digital content, and we've worked with both of them because we found that sometimes there's a price difference, number one, but sometimes there's titles and companies that one works with that another doesn't. So we've actually used them to kind of give us a nice blanket coverage of as much digital content as is out there. And a lot of times if we're interested in content, we can actually lean on one of them to go out and procure it for us. Takes a little bit longer, but the movement is so quick into this that they have abilities and resources to go out and actually pull content in. And there's even folks out there that are in emerging technology companies that are willing to do that for, custom authored content. So even faculty content that's in there, they're willing to drive it into a digital format to get that into part of these inclusive models as well. So I would say that even though it's a little bit Wild West out in the frontier, it's also exciting that it's so open and boundless right now to get any kind of content into an inclusive program. And I think we're just beginning to scratch the surface of where that can go moving forward.
Yeah, good. And I can tell you from our perspective, we work with both VitalSource and RedShelf. And then a third model that we've worked with at times is to share our content directly with an institution, and they host it on a platform, and that we just work out an agreement whereby they indicate how they'd protect that to ensure that it's only accessed by students in a given course. So those are the three ways that we've worked with these programs thus far. Well, that is all the questions that we've received. We want to thank everyone for submitting those questions and also attending the session today. I especially want to thank Mary and Rusty for their participation. I think it was a very helpful discussion in an emerging area that I think offers a lot of promise for a lot of different folks. What I would also like to do is encourage folks that have attended to feel free to reach out to me with questions about any interest they may have in first steps of who to talk to about an inclusive access program. And you might recognize some of these folks, and they're already calling on you in your kinesiology departments. They're also eager to help on any questions that arise. That's our HK sales team. So please do reach out to us. We're happy to be able to respond. And again, I want to thank very much Mary and Rusty for their presentation today and taking the time to be with us. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great afternoon.